All right. Hey, if you've been watching these, thanks for sticking through till episode 5. This is Dr. Walking Dead's mini quick reviews of the A24 horror films, perhaps one of the most influential studios and distributor of elevated content around. I know a lot of people hate that term. Anyway, we've made it to the last 5 chronologically for the currently available A24 films. Once again, I am producing these short clips because of the tremendous efforts, done over on the No Bodies Horror podcast, where they did a 3-part series on the A24 horror films. I strongly recommend everybody go check that out and subscribe to that channel. They do really good work over there. All right, so into the last 5, the home stretch. Pretty much all of these films, well, all the horror films I'm going to talk about are from 2022. 2022 was a banner year for A24, and honestly, I think it was a very strong year for horror in general, despite what some may think. Anyway, we're going to start with X. That's right, X. This is the Ty West auteured film, written and directed by him, filmed in New Zealand, starring the incomparable Mia Goth, but also the very up-and-coming, if not already arrived, Jenna Ortega, playing 2 of the leads in there, along with Brittany Snow. So we have a pretty strong cast of great female actresses. And of course, Mia Goth is playing 2 roles here, both Maxine, the young, and Pearl, the old. This is an hour and 45 minutes. It's I would say this is a pretty hard R rating, but it is an intriguing throwback to the 70s. Ty West did film this in the style of a 70s era slasher film, and I think it's very effective. I think the style is super cool, not just in the sets, locations, props, costumes, hair, makeup, all that stuff is really great, but it looks like it was made in the 70s, just with a super futuristic camera. Anyway, the second half of X is really cool. The slasher part, the geriatric slasher, I think is very cool. This idea of scary old people, violent old people. And I do love the premise. The reason that Pearl goes on her murderous rampage is, well, let's just call it kind of unique and somewhat antithetical to the 70s, 80s rules of slasher films. Mia Goth plays a very different kind of final girl, one that challenges some of the conventions established by Carol Clover. So I do highly recommend this film. I think it takes a little bit too long getting into the horror. I think some of that first part is a little gratuitous and indulgent, but that's just me. You know, I'm a prude. So I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Horror fans, it's a must. You have to have this under your belt. I like it. So it is a strong recommendation, and you're not going to go wrong if you own all of Ty West's films. Very, very great filmmaker. So that was X. All right, the next one I want to look at is Men. Men, which is written and directed by Alex Garland. I love Alex Garland. I'm a big fan of his work, as indicated by my 10 out of 10 for Ex Machina. I'm writing a paper about that this week, by the way, because I love it. But Men is very surreal, but unlike some of the other films I've been talking about, the surrealism in this film is terrifying. I find this film really, really scary, and I think it puts the story together in an interesting way with the non-sequential storyline and the editing. Now, I have recently become a huge fan of Jessie Buckley. I really like Jessie Buckley. I discovered her in Fargo Season 4, and I've kind of been actively following her career and watching a lot of her films. She's very diverse, very flexible, really great actor. So she plays Harper in this. And then we got to mention Rory Kinnear, because Rory Kinnear plays like 10, 12 different characters very, very effectively. One of the reasons why I am scoring this high, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, and it's mostly because of the ending of this film. The last 15 minutes are unforgettable, very, very cool. There's also a tremendously effective sequence done with a tunnel. So I am all for this film. I am all in. Strangely, Internet Movie Database gives it a 6.1. I think it is perhaps a little inaccessible for some people because it is very cerebral. Anyway, it's available on Paramount Plus. It's on Plex. I highly recommend it. I say you should watch it. You should own it. You should share it. I think this is a really important film. All right, let's move on to another 2022 film. This one I avoided for a while, and it's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Bodies, 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 an unexpected kind of slasher film, although I don't know if it's technically a slasher. It's definitely a murder and mayhem film, all set in one location. It's all in one house, so it does call back to some great tropes and traditions. Unlike a lot of the films we've been discussing, this is not an auteur project. It was written by Sarah DeLapp and Kristen Rupanian. I am terrible at names. And it's directed by Helena Rajan. God, so bad. But fabulous. Female writers, female director, and the top listed cast are all women. Amanda Stenberg, Maria Bakalova, Mihaela Harold, Rachel Sanat, Chase Sue Wonders. Quite a diverse cast, really great. Now, unfortunately, the reason I avoided this film so much was Pete Davidson. I'm not a fan of Pete Davidson. I find him somewhat grating and annoying, to each his own. But that's one of the reasons I didn't necessarily want to watch this film. Well, I finally pulled the trigger on it because I'm trying to, watch all the A24 films. And wow, this was an unexpected gem. So a couple of the highlights of this, really the dialogue. The dialogue in this film is amazing because in addition to being a horror film, it is kind of openly making fun of millennials and maybe even Gen Zers, but it mocks the idea of being woke. It mocks political correctness. And it does it in a very, very clever way by kind of abusing vocabulary that I have personally grown tired of. And there is some tediousness to how these characters engage with it. So it's a comedy, but the horror is pretty horror. And I'd stick with that. I also wanted to just say the other male cast member, Lee Pace. Lee Pace is a great actor. This is kind of an unexpected role for him. He does a really great job. He's quite comedic, although he's not being funny. Unpack that. It also has a great twist ending. I'm not like every twist ending works. This twist ending totally works. And very, very unexpected. My rating went up by the time I got to the end of it. So I know I'm kind of speaking its praises effusively, but it's a 7 out of 10. It's not a perfect film. There are some things that are a little flawed with it. Some of the comedy doesn't hit, and some of Pete Davidson doesn't hit. But 7 out of 10, I think this is definitely a good watch. I recommend it. It's also on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has a lot of good stuff over there, by the way, especially if you're into television. So anyway, that's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. A strong recommend for a stream, for a view. And for the right generation, probably a purchase. I think this is not, I am not the primary audience, but I loved it. All right, wrapping up here. We get to the X prequel, which is, of course, Pearl. Pearl, which was kind of a surprise prequel, came out the same year as X. Also available on Paramount Plus, by the way. This was also a Ty West film, but it was co-written by Mia Goth. And I love the story of this film, that they flew to New Zealand to film X, and they were quarantined for 2 weeks in a hotel. They had nothing to do, so Ty West, I keep changing how I pronounce it, Ty West and Mia Goth decided, hey, let's write a prequel to the film we haven't even made yet, and then let's make it simultaneously so we can use the same sets and locations and props and all that stuff. Well, Mia Goth is an amazing actress, and everything I've seen her with, I've been impressed by, but she is a powerhouse in this film. Her performance is just shockingly amazing. It is a period piece. It takes place in 1918 during the Great War, which is significant to the story. But instead of trying to emulate the 1918 film aesthetic, thank you for not making this a silent black and white film, Ty West decided to go with kind of a 1930s, 40s era musical aesthetic, even though it's not a musical. So the colors are great. The landscape photography is great. And it is kind of based on Wizard of Oz. No, I'm serious. The Wizard of Oz characters line up pretty effectively with this structure. And it's amazing. Mia Goth is so good. She's so sympathetic. She's so terrifying. There's a great bit with a roast pig that's really, really funny. There are some amazing sequences with Mia Goth, one involving a scarecrow, one which is a powerhouse monologue that some have criticized for its length, but I think it is brilliant and amazing. It is the greatest dance number of all time. Sorry, Napoleon Dynamite, you've been usurped. And the ending. Whew. So I am a huge fan of this film. Big fan. Yeah, big fan. So I do give Pearl a 10 out of 10. I gave it that when I first saw it. I rewatched it recently in connection with X, and I think I may have liked it better. So Pearl's... I really got to write a paper about it before somebody else does. Anyway, so this takes us now to the most recent of the films for me in some ways. But before I get to it, I just want to say Beau is Afraid, not a horror film. I'm going to stick to that. Beau is Afraid is a surreal mental journey into madness. As Ari Aster describes it, it's the Jewish Lord of the Rings. I'm not trying to be racist, that's what he said. It's a wild film. It's a little indulgent. It's a little weird, but it's powerhouse acted and unforgettable, but not horror. So that means Talk to Me. Talk to Me, a big hit last year. I see it's at the top of a lot of top 10 horror film lists for 22. It's creepy. It's better than I thought it would be. I had some reservations, and I shouldn't have. I should have trusted the studio. But this is a film that comes from Danny Filippo, and Danny and Michael co-directed it. I don't know if they're brothers or partners or what, but it's also co-written by Daley Pearson and Bill Hintzman. Bill Hintzman, who I don't really know. His name sounded like the zombie from Night of the Living Dead. Anyway, it's a really creepy film about demons and seances and demonic possession, and it's got a cool, creepy prop and a pretty upsetting ending. But one of the things I really like about it, and this is kind of in the same space as Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. It would make a really great double feature, end with this one. But it's about the kind of newer generation not taking serious things serious enough and being too serious about things that aren't that serious. But these guys use demonic possession as a drug. And it's fascinating. So I really think it's a very cool film. I liked it a lot. I didn't love it. It's not, it did make my top 10. So I'll go with that. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. This is a definite watch, but it's not available for free that I know of, so we'll just call this a purchase. Just go out and grab this one. This is going to be a multiple viewing type of film, and I think it would be a great party film. This would be a really good film to watch as a group because that's what the film is about people getting together to scare each other and to scare themselves. So check it out. I do need to revisit this one. I've only seen it the once, and I really liked it. All right, so there we have it. We have all of the A24 films that are generally classified as horror. So quick recap, my 10 out of 10s here are Ex Machina, The Witch, Hereditary, and Pearl. To me, those are the cream of the crop. Those four are excellent, excellent films, and I want to engage in them more as time goes by. This year, as far as I know, looking forward to The Back Rooms, Civil War, The Front Room, Talk to Me 2, Talk to Me, get it? And of course, Maxine, the sequel to X. Really looking forward to that one. So if you've enjoyed this, please share. Thanks for listening. Do check out the No Bodies Horror Podcast. Please check out Jay of the Dead's new horror movies and catch me over on Dead Man Still Walking. Thanks.